Spanish. Bienvenida, directora de Sustainable. Gracias. El pasaje jardines sanos es igual de gente sana. Next slide, please. We are so grateful to have all of you join us this evening. We do want to mention that this project has a great number of collaborators. So while Sustainable Princeton is one of them and is grateful to be participating, we do want to acknowledge that there are many others, including those from the government leadership you'll hear today, Environmental Commission, as Next slide, please.
Molly, I just want to let you know that I think your streaming is freezing a little bit, so you may want to repeat what you just said.
Okay, I'm going to turn.
Yes, if you turn on your video, that might help.
Okay, I just wanted to welcome everyone to the project and let you know any collaborators participating on this project. Sustainable Princeton is the lead. There are many, including government leadership, those volunteer boards, committees, and as well as a number of other nonprofits. Acknowledge that. Bienvenidos a todos quienes están aquí esta noche. Queremos agradecerles por llegar y mencionar que hay mucha gente trabajando en eso. No solo es nuestra organización, gente del gobierno y otros voluntarios, otras organizaciones quienes están colaborando en eso. Okay, next, please. Tomorrow is the Earth Day. This is actually the first Earth Day. Last year was, of course, during the pandemic, a notable one, but we want to acknowledge and are so glad to have you here learning about sustainable landscape on this day that is so important to our planet to be celebrating. Queremos mencionar que hoy es el Día del Tierra para nuestro planeta tiene en el ambiente que es tan bonita. Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to mention here for anyone who would like Spanish translation throughout the program, how that's accomplished. And that is, if you, at the bottom of your screen, you will notice there is an interpretation button. You can click on that, and from once we turn it on here momentarily, you'll have the option of listening to the program in Spanish. I'm now going to explain that in Spanish. Aquí abajo de su pantalla hay, en los controles, vas a ver en un momento un lugar que se llama interpretación. Si se toca allí, se va a escuchar el programa en español. Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to pass the program over to Christine Symington, our program director.
Just going to give a second. If you are an attendee, you should now have an option at the bottom for interpretation. Give a moment for you to switch to the Spanish channel if that is the audio stream you want to listen to. Okay, as Molly mentioned, I'm Christine Symington. I'm the program director at Sustainable Princeton. We want to thank our project funder, Partners for Places, and also the Princeton Public Library for the support in promoting this event. Quick housekeeping note, you can click on the Q&A button in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen to enter your questions. You can enter them at any time. and we will get to them at the Q&A at the end. I'm going to start with a quick poll question so we can get a sense of who we have in our audience tonight. So tell us, we'd like to know, are you a Princeton resident that takes care of your own yard? Are you a landscaping company owner that does business in Princeton? Are you a landscaping company crew member that works in Princeton? Are you a resident that employs a landscaping company? Or are you a renter, a condo owner in Princeton, where someone else makes the decision about the yard? Or perhaps you're a resident of another town that is interested in this topic. Looks like we've got about 75% of folks who filled out their answer. I'll give it a 20 more seconds and I'll share the results. Okay, looks like we've got a third, and a third here. About a third of us are Princeton residents that take care of their own yard. About a third are Princeton residents that employs landscaping company. And about 24% are from other towns that are interested in this topic. So welcome, everyone. I want to take a moment to acknowledge our project partners. This has been a project that kicked off in January. And since that time, we've had a group of folks who've been working on this all together. We have members of the Princeton municipality, including representative from Council, Board of Health, Civil Rights Commission, the Environmental Commission, Human Services Commission. You'll be hearing tonight from our partner, Unidad Latina and Acción. We've had a Princeton resident, interpreter and advocate, Maria Vega. We have members of Quiet Princeton, members from LALDA, the Latin American Legal and Defense and Education Fund, as well as a representative from the Rutgers School of Public Health, and an intern who's doing a project from the Rutgers Environmental Stewards Program. So why are we here and why are we working on this project? We have come to the conclusion, or we've all agreed, that there is a negative impact on the health of landscaping workers from landscaping practices. We also acknowledge that there's a negative impact on the environment from traditional landscaping practices. And the recognition of the impacts are not new. Many members of our community have been working to address this issue for years in Princeton. And there's been a shift for certain community members to work or attend school from home because of the pandemic. And it's brought some of these issues to the fore. Most notably, folks are noticing the noise because they're home more, noise coming from the equipment that landscaping crews are using to manage properties. And we acknowledge that we all have a responsibility to play a part in learning about healthier and more sustainable landscaping practices and implementing changes as our time and budgets allow. And very importantly, there is a recognition in the environmental and sustainability community that it has not done enough to address inequities in our society. All of these points brought the projects together to work on an equitable sustainability project. And that is what the funder was looking to help communities do, to work on equitable sustainability project. And they define that as a project where it serves the people who are impacted by the systems of oppression and injustice, economic disadvantage, and environmental harm, and where they are the co-creators, leaders, and partners in designing the solutions, and they're committed to addressing institutional and systemic racism and equitable outcomes. So as much as this is a project about designing policy and programs that protect the health of both landscapers and our environment, It is about learning as a community how to adopt more equitable practices. The project partners are learning together how we can work to shift power in our community so that those with the most need and those that are the most impacted by a policy or a program have more influence in the decision making. We are learning together what it means to prioritize those that are impacted by a policy or program that have least influence. And we're learning that it's important to move from simply informing and consulting community members to collaborating with them and empowering them. So with that, I would like to introduce our project partner, Ana Paula-Pazmiño from Unidad Latina and Acción. Ana, if you'll enable your video and your audio.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am excited and glad to be here. Thank you for all of the support in Princeton and especially to Sustainable Princeton for giving us a voice in this project. I will continue with what we do, who we are, and I wanted to give you a little sense of the work that we do. This is our 12th anniversary year, so we've been little by little building up to different projects that affect our members, and our members are the working class people who have little voice in the end because they are the frontline workers, what we see in this pandemic, who have been hit the hardest. So part of our mission and vision is to educate, empower, and organize migrant communities. We are a grassroots organization who runs mainly through volunteer and grant work. So as part of our mission to educate and empower the community, we have started small committees, and our vision is to create justice, create spaces for workers' justice and migrant justice, to create health and safety work justice, where everyone who has a small voice can be heard through a collective action. So we have worked a lot. Part of our vision is to make sure that our objective to stand against unconstitutional and unfair laws, and that involves everything from detentions and deportations to health and safety, labor rights that we've seen. And part of our work comes through campaigns. We've done ICE Free New Jersey. If you have seen, probably there's a big movement for abolishing ICE, police and ICE collaboration, the detention and deportation system, wage theft. So we work with workers, day laborers, domestic workers, which include housekeeping, nannies, anything that has to do with like elder care workers. And so we have found that there's a big need for wage theft campaigning. In our health and safety campaigns, we started working with Sustainable Princeton on this project, which involves many of our membership and also involves many of our organizers who live in Princeton. Our response through the pandemic, because we have not been able to have relief and economic relief for our excluded and essential workers, we started a new campaign for a relief fund, just like the stimulus that many of us have received because of laws through the federal government. Well, the state hasn't allowed anything for undocumented workers. So we decided as a community to come together through donations, through foundations who have collaborated, and now we've been able to give a little relief, not what is deemed necessary because of all the essential expenses that we have as like food and rent, but at least it was helpful to put some food on the table and perhaps pay a little bit of bills. So those are our campaigns, and I wanted to show you a little bit about what we do in pictures. So we do a lot of training, educational workshops that build on people power, worker power. We participate in a lot of the events around the state. So this one is specifically, we have Lorena here, a worker, talking to the essential and excluded event where there's a big coalition of immigration organizations who are calling the governor to have a little bit of funding for a economic relief for undocumented workers. Just like New York just passed a $2.1 billion fund, we want the same, or at least something that will help our families put food on the table. Next, we also do collaborative work with Princeton Mutual Aid, and this arose from the pandemic, where we distribute food every other Sunday. We are working closely with the Witherspoon Presbyterian Church, where they allow us some space either outside of the office. When it was really cold, we had to go through the church, but in a safe manner. And I have to tell you that the families, they are so grateful for this, not only because it helps with putting food on the table, but it's built a committee, and we have now a committee of leaders in the organization that have come together and now organize, who will be taking the temperature, who will be writing down names, who will be giving the food directly to the people who come, social distancing. So it really has helped organize the community. And we also have, in the next picture, a little bit of, we come together to do educational work with the domestic workers. Most of them are women who have children, single mothers, or have been in this line of work for many years without benefits. So they don't have sick pay, they don't have vacation time, they get paid a minimum. There's no real law that protects them under the Department of Labor. So we are demanding actually a Bill of Rights for domestic workers as part of a coalition. And last but not least, we are preparing for a big event where we will be commemorating International Workers' Day and also celebrating the 12th anniversary of Unidad Latina. So I urge you to, in the chat, you have a couple of links to visit us to get more information. And I hope that you can save the date. We will be on Saturday, May 1st at 11 a.m., promptly starting and gathering at the Witherspoon Presbyterian Church outside. We'll be socially distanced. Please wear your mask and come share with us a couple of demands that we have as a community. And it's always good to see each other in person, I say, because this pandemic has really put a lot of stressors on us. So it'll be fun to see each other. And I thank you for your time as part of Unidad Latina. But with our work, we have focused on the landscapers of our community, of our members, right? So now that you know what Unidad Latina does, you also must know that we've come together with Sustainable Princeton to bring together the Hispanic owners of landscaping companies And in a little bit, I'll be talking about the crew members, the actual workers that are also members of our organization. So when we started these focus groups, we had some outcomes that we'd like to share with you. We have the cost of equipment, which was a concern for the business owners. Switching from gas to electric or battery operated was a concern. The expectation of homeowners. Some homeowners are very precise in what they want particular, and with some of the equipment, new things needed to happen. Also, the awareness of the lowering the total cost of ownership, but still having upfront costs. That's something that was concerning. We have an ordinance creating classism and unfair treatment. And that's where I was talking about that our frontline workers need to have a voice, because some of the ordinances begin to affect more of the frontline workers and then build up from there, right? So we're all going to be affected somehow. Being heard and included in the decision-making process is very important for the Hispanic-owned landscaping companies owners. We also have the increase in prices based on the preferences of the homeowners. So in effect, the pricing will also affect the workers and how many hours perhaps they need to work and the pay, right? Because of the increase in prices. So we can move on to a couple of the focus group concerns that came out through the crew members. And they were worried about exposure to the substances, the chemicals, the noise, and many of them shared with us some stories about how they protected themselves, and also how they've had friends or coworkers who have had medical conditions and then essentially got medically treated for some of these things because of work. Their fear also for the increase in the prices will result in the possibility of them losing their jobs. So like I said, the hours perhaps that they work now, which are long hours, will be shortened because of the price increases. So there's a concern. And then of course, there's some unfair treatment by owners. So not every owner will be conscious of the worker, and it becomes a power dynamic, but we wanna focus on how their voice can be also heard, and the owners can collaborate with the crew members so that this unfair treatment is leveled, basically. So we wanted to share with you, when we had these focus groups, we had great participation, and some of them told us very personal and very touching stories and how they felt, their opinions. So we put here a very nice quote in English and Spanish. And I'd like to just pinpoint some of the things that come through this. So the building of the workers and the lands, sorry, this is the owners, right? The building of that relationship comes from them wanting to be treated as professionals. So in the mix of understanding their work, their line of work, and then also being able to provide a service for the residents of Princeton is very important to them. They have that willingness to be part of global environment, taking care of the environment. They want to make sure that they are helping, not making it worse, right? So we know that there's a consciousness for environmental education. And many of these Hispanic owners have lived here for a very long time. They have families here, they've made lives, their children have started schooling, maybe are in high school or college, and they understand that they want to invest in helping the community. So it's a matter of working together. So that's what one of our owners had mentioned, and pinpointing that this is important also comes the workers' perspective. And we had a handful of workers who also mentioned that they were aware of taking care of the environment, of using equipment that was more sustainable. And one of our workers here mentioned that it's important to take into account that because the gardening is not easy, right? The work is laborious on them. The payment also can be very little, and they put their whole day basically into this. And there should be an equity issue here that we need to take up front, because not every line of work should be paid just by the hour, right, or by the project. So we have to take into consideration too that it's a big challenging work that they do, and the workers they want to make sure that they're also getting paid for their services in a dignified manner. And the second part, we had another worker who talked about them and their health and safety. When this worker talks about like the rules and the laws, he or she, I believe, is acknowledging the fact that they want to be part of the ordinances and part of the knowledge of health and safety, so that they too can take care of their bodies, right? Making sure that they have health and safety guidelines, equipment that will help their hearing, that will help their protect their eyes, etc. So this is very important, and sharing this with you has allowed us to also see a little bit more of how what the needs are of the workers and the owners of these businesses. So with that, I think that I will leave the perspective of the owners and the crew members, and we can continue with our next part. But if you have any questions, please put it in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. And at the end.
Thank you so much, Anna. I want to say on behalf of Sustainable Princeton, it has been such an honor to get to know you and your organization over the past few months. And it's been really eye-opening for us to learn about the work that you do and the members of our community that you advocate for. There's a clarification question in the Q&A. I think it was for the slide about the owners' concerns. I think what they meant there was potential ordinances. They have concerns, I think, about existing ordinances, what type of ordinances. I don't think that we know specifically, but there were concerns about future ordinances, those that might restrict or prohibit the use of gas-powered equipment or anything else, that creating classism and unfair treatment. So this is what we heard from them, and something we want to be aware of. I think that answers the question from Tammy Sands in the Q&A.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Okay. So now I'm going to ask Councilwoman Eve Niedergang and Edgar Gonzales of Green Lawn Maintenance to turn on their cameras and unmute themselves. This part of our webinar tonight is going to be Eve in conversation with Edgar, who is a local landscaper. Edgar, do we have you? There we are. We have Edgar and his wife, Kim. So Eve, I will hand it over to you to have a discussion with Edgar.
Great. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Edgar and Kim, for being here. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and about what your day looks like?
Absolutely. So I was telling Christine the other day that I actually moved from Guatemala in 2009. I actually worked for a deli for a couple of years until about 2014. And then is when I started, to doing landscaping pretty much on the weekends until 2019, when we really decided, to go pretty much full time. We did it with, gas equipment and everything. And then we quickly realized, that the problems that we were facing, and then we decided, over the winter that we were going to do some research and stuff about, battery equipment. And then is when we actually find out the companies that they build lawn mowers, commercial, battery equipment. And then from there, we sold pretty much everything we own with gas power. And we went completely with, battery power equipment.
That's a big step.
Yes, definitely.
So you did this at the beginning of this year, is that?
That's correct.
Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What has your experience been so far?
I love it. It's nice and quiet. Our customer actually loves it as well because, like they say, they're actually, working from home. Kids are studying at home and everything. And they just love it how quiet we get. We get there, we get our work done, and they pretty much if they don't see us, pretty much they don't notice us.
And how has it affected the health of you and your employees? How does that feel for you?
Believe it or not, when we used to work with gas equipment, at the end of the day, you pretty much feel sick because you're breathing that, combustion. But with battery power, it's just like, at the end of the day, we feel pretty much like we have so much energy left that, we want to keep going, but, the day's already gone,
That's a great result. So how many customers do you have in Princeton now?
In Princeton, about 15,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm doing some advertisement and, we are getting a few more here and there.
I think you have really good word of mouth because we heard about you through a post on Nextdoor where somebody said, one of your customers said a lot of really good things about you. So clearly the word is getting out there. So congratulations.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So how do you work with your customers to, let's say one of your customers has never experienced electric equipment before? Like, what do you say to them to tell them about this equipment and this change?
So, let's see here. Do you want to jump in?
Sure.
Can we get my wife here to explain a little bit as well?
He's already throwing me under the bus. So I think one of the biggest, I'd say, selling points, if you want to call it that, is the lowering the risk of damaging their property. The lawn with the electrical equipment, battery power equipment does not pose a risk to the environment. There's also no risk of spills for gas and oil and hydraulic fluids that the gas equipment has. So we've had customers who've had bad experiences with that type of leaks that ends up damaging their lawn. And then they have to make a bigger investment to repair those things because most of the time some of the company owners don't cover the cost of what they've messed up in a way. So that's one of the biggest things that we we promote, right? With battery power equipment, you're minimizing the risk of damage to your property, and also you're minimizing the risk to the environment as well. So like he mentioned, the pollution, the noise, right now life has changed because of the pandemic. So a lot of people want lower noise alternatives.
So it was a big jump and a big change, but so far all the signs are good. Your customers are happy, and you feel that the investment was a good one.
For sure. I want to say yes.
He wants to say it. Yeah, it is definitely a big risk. It is a big investment. The equipment is custom made. The lawnmowers are custom made. There isn't that many providers out there for it. So it is definitely a big investment. So far, as our experience has been positive. So the only thing is, yeah, there is challenges to it, right? The price increases because it's a little more time consuming. You do get the same quality, or probably even better quality, with battery powered equipment, but it doesn't it does increase a little bit the time of the time that it takes to get the services done.
Mhm.
So there is more pros than cons, I would say.
I think something that we've been saying is that there's two sides to this. There's the supply side, what you are providing, but there's also the demand side, getting customers to change what they expect, and the price they're willing to pay, maybe, and that for something that's better for the health of the workers and the environment, it's worth that extra investment. For everyone. So we're trying to get that message out as well. So what would you say to another owner of a landscaping company about your experience, and to encourage them to think about making this change?
You want to answer this question?
I'll leave that one to you.
So, first of all, I would say for our employees, it's much better, for their health. And what else should I say? Do you want to jump in and help me here?
Sure. To other, company owners, we know it's scary. That just switching completely is not easy. We just went through it, so we know it's hard. But there are definitely a lot of benefits to it. Like I said, the risk that you're mitigating by switching to battery power equipment is a great gain in the long term. Also, when it comes to maintenance of the equipment, you're also mitigating some of that maintenance required for gas equipment. Some of the gas powered lawnmowers require a lot of maintenance, which if you can't do by yourself can get really pricey. So you're definitely saving some cost on that end. So it balances out. So we know it's risky, but it does pay off in the long run. I think if anyone is thinking about making this move, you have to think about it long term, because it's something that you're not going to see right away. A big profit, especially right away, but long term, it's a very, I think it's a very profitable solution.
So the electric equipment so far, very little cost in terms of maintenance or problems or anything like that?
Yeah, it does have lower maintenance. So like we mentioned, we've only had the equipment, like we got all new equipment and just at the beginning of the year. So we're running on new equipment, so there hasn't been that many risks, but yeah, definitely they do require less maintenance, right? Based on our research, they do require less maintenance. So we're yet to see what we would be facing if that wasn't the case. But so far, very good, very easy to upkeep.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And so you said that you see the benefits in health, and I guess for the noise as well, and that you have a lot more energy at
Yes.
the end of the day.
Yes, definitely.
Is that something you expected, or was that
Yes, that's
supply.
actually one of the main reasons, you know, to do the change from one to the other.
So all in all, you feel that the change has been good for your business, and
I would say yes, a thumbs up, you know.
yeah. Excellent. Is there anything else do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about your day, like the hours that you work and what time do you start in the morning? How many customers you can do in a day? Is there a lot of time driving from one place to another, or you try to go someplace? Just a little bit about what your day is like.
Absolutely. So first thing we like to start in Princeton, I want to say around 8 o'clock in the morning, just because we want to respect, you know, some people are still sleeping and stuff like that. So we don't want to be, you know, the company that wants, you know, a neighbor out yelling at us saying that, you know, what are we doing early in the morning? But yeah, we start at around 8 o'clock in the morning. And like you said, we take about, you know, 45 minutes to service a property. And then we drive for about another 5 minutes, I want to say. And then, we basically, you know, we are a small company. We don't really run around like other companies that they have, you know, 7 people on one truck, you know, getting yards done in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you know. So we are 2 people right now in the field. We service about, I want to say maybe 8 to 10 properties a day. So we do basically Thursdays and Fridays for Princeton, because you know, they don't want that noise either on the weekends, you know. And then so if anything, we schedule some landscaping work for either Saturday and then Monday and Tuesday, and then we have a Wednesday available for something that, you know, can always come up.
And is there anything else you want to tell people about your business or your decision to switch to this? Or
I'll get my wife to help me on this one as well.
Well, we're definitely, like I said, like we're a startup company ran by the 2 of us pretty much, right? I do the backbone, he does the field work. We are pretty customer focused, so he's really good with people, so he really does take pride in the work that he's doing. He's very passionate about it, so that's why I'm 100% supportive, because it's not just a job. He's really passionate about taking care of, you know, the properties, making sure the job gets done properly. So we like to customize the service to the needs of our customers. So like I said, we're very customer focused. We want to make sure that we are happy when we're providing the service, and also that our customer is happy with the services that we're providing.
excellent. Well, you guys are really, Edgar and Kim, you're on the cutting edge of, I think, a real change in how landscaping is done, and I hope that you'll be a model and available to answer questions from other people that are thinking about this kind of switch.
Absolutely, yes, 100%. Yeah, like I like to think of him as a pioneer. He really, like, he is the one with all the ideas. I'm the one who's just the supportive partner in this business. So I like to think of him. He's really a pioneer. He really wants to do things differently, and yeah, we're available for anyone who would like to, you know, find out and learn more about the initiative.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, and really a pleasure to meet you and to talk to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and
Thank you very much.
Stay on, Edgar and Kim. You know, we have some questions. Could you elaborate a little more about the cost of the electric equipment? We have 2 questions in the Q&A. And so you mentioned you sold the existing sort of fleet that you had. And so I'm assuming you use that to sort of, with the purchase of the new battery powered equipment. And could you talk a little bit more about, like, how much is the price difference?
It's significantly different. So one of the bigger mowers that we acquired this time was close to $30,000. So we have two of like the main ones that we use. The total for both of them was close to 50. So they're pricier than the gas powered equipment. The previous ones that we had usually were between $10,000 and $15,000. So like the price of the equipment it's considerably higher. Now the handheld tools are around the same price, some of them. But like I said, the problem is not so much with how much they cost, it's with the availability of the tools. Right? The lawnmowers had to be custom made. They took longer for us to for the provider to, like, they pretty much built them on request. So yeah, that's what the price ranges are.
And how how do you deal with the batteries and the length of how much they hold a charge? And do you have to charge them during the day? Did you have to have a battery bank that's enough to get you through the day? How did you go about sorting that out?
So for all the handheld equipment, we do have backup batteries. Everything charges overnight. A fully charged mower can last up to 7 hours of work. So if, like you said, if we service 7 to 8 properties for the day, right now we're yet to see running out of power while on the field, because we've planned accordingly, right? The scheduling is key in order to get the work done.
Yeah. Great. Okay, well, if you guys can hang around till the end, when we'll have some more questions, when we open up all the panelists or speakers to Q&A, that we'd be very appreciative.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, another thing that I wanted to mention is the lawn mowers require 220 what do you call that?
Bolts.
Yes.
Bolts.
Bolts.
Yes.
Yep.
To charge, and then the handheld equipment, it takes 110.
Okay, that's important. So I assume then you have somewhere at your property a 220 volt outlet.
Yes,
We had
to make the setup for it. Yeah, we definitely have to like make adjustments for that. We have an enclosed trailer, so we did the whole setup. We had to get the whole setup done for the 220 volt line of electric outside the property to be able to make that happen.
You can get them to charge with 110. The only thing is that they can take up to 15 hours to charge completely, but with the 220s, right? It can take from 9 to 12 hours. I want to say it depends, how much juice you bring in back.
So if you would charge it overnight using 220 volts, and that should give you enough to get you through the day.
That's correct.
And so when you started this, it was probably the colder season, right? So if I understand some battery technology, it's a little slower, or it doesn't hold as much of a charge when it's cold. Did you notice that as it's getting warmer, it's not much of an issue?
So with the technology that they have right now, they're saying that it's pretty much the same, but we are yet to find out,
Mm-hmm. And one last question here. Did you have to sort of change how you manage a property? Like, one thing we've been hearing is with the leaf blowers, they might not have as much power or force. And so some, let's say it's going to be fall and there's going to be a lot of leaves and it rains and they're going to be very heavy. How do you think the equipment will perform?
So with the equipment, I'm also getting in touch with a few what do you call them, providers, that if they can build a bigger battery leaf blower, and they're saying that might have one out for the fall, but they're not sure yet. But how I'm thinking that I'm gonna do it, in Princeton, properties are not that big, so we can at least get the leaves out to the lawn, and then I'm gonna be using my my lawn mowers with the baggers, so I can bag it and bring it out to the street. So that way, even if my blowers are not strong enough, I do have my lawn mowers that they can help me out.
Okay. Well, now I have to ask this other question. Are the mowers able to mulch the leaves so you don't have to put them in bags into the curb? There's a lot of interest in Princeton and trying to keep leaves on properties and use them as an amendment. If you mulch them, it's good for the soil. Is that something the mowers can do?
Yes, I do have my mulching kits for both of them. The smaller one, they're telling me that it has about 27 horsepower engine, but in battery power. And then the bigger one, which is an stand-on, it has about 37 horsepower. So they do have the power to mulch some wet leaves and stuff like that.
Okay, and what would you, it seems like that is something that we want customers to request of landscapers. What suggestions would you have to get property owners to choose that as how the leaves are managed versus putting them out on the street?
So I do have my my mentor, which he's in Skillman, New Jersey. He also owns a landscaping company, which is called Green Valley. He told me that it's better for us to mulch them and leave them on the ground rather than bringing them outside. So I am actually offering that service for Princeton and Skillman as well. So if they request me to mulch them, I will definitely do it for them.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, now I really mean it. We will move on to the next section of our event. Thank you so much, Edgar and Kim and Eve. We just wanted to take a moment to give our audience an update of what our next steps are engaging with the landscaping community in our effort to collaborate and empower members of our community that quite often don't have or a seat at the table in decision-making of programs and policies. Over the next several weeks, the project partners are going to be meeting with local landscaping company owners and workers, the mayor, 2 members of Princeton Council, and 2 members from the Princeton Environmental Commission, Unidad Latina Acción, to discuss a potential ordinance regarding the use of gas-powered equipment in Princeton. The aim of these discussions are to facilitate a conversation with the participants on ideas and solutions, and brainstorm ideas of how we can address the concerns that have come up in our conversations with the owners and the workers. And additionally, to help support companies in their transition, we're going to be hosting a workshop in the summer that will be conducted in English and Spanish. We'll be bringing in an organization called AGSA, which stands for the American Green Zone Alliance. They have worked with communities and companies across the country to help with transitioning not just the equipment, but how to use them, how to not use them, and use alternative means to manage our property. It will be a one-day workshop where in the morning will be a classroom learning session, and then in the afternoon it's a field session where you get to test and kick the tires on equipment. So we're very excited to be able to offer that. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jenny Ludber, my colleague and Community Outreach Manager for Sustainable Princeton, who's going to talk about what you can do. For those that answered that you're a property owner or you employ a landscaper, we want to share some tips with you.
That's great. Thank you, Christine. You could go ahead and move to the next slide. All right, so what can you do? You can introduce sustainable landscaping. That is more than just ending the use of synthetic pesticides and herbicides. So how do you do it? One thing is to strengthen your soil with organic matter, like Christine and was just saying how we want to leave the leaves on our property, hopefully with a mulch mowing technique, but there are several other ways. Grass is wonderful. We need it to walk and play on, but it's best if we limit it. And when we do have it, if we could mow it at a higher, at a 2.5 to 3 inches height, Also, when we water, we want to water it deeply, but also infrequently. That's much better than just giving everything a little bit of water every day, because the deep watering encourages deeper roots, which allows things to not need water as much. Also consider having a portion of your lawn become a meadow. This would support pollinators and all kinds of wildlife and be beautiful at the same time. And then the next slide is all about the idea of doing all of this with native plants. So the idea behind native plants is that they thrive in our system. They were evolved within this system. So they don't need the heavy watering and fertilizing and all of this other attention that non-native plants may need. They also are uniquely qualified to support all of the local birds, butterflies, and bees that we want to support. When at the end of this, I have a link to our webpage where you could actually get resources on where to buy native plants. And then I also have a list here of some of the top benefits. The one I really want to highlight that I didn't mention is the ability for native plants to conserve and filter water, because these are native, they're evolved to the land. They typically, and it varies from plant to plant, but there are examples of plants that have 8 feet deep roots, in spite of the fact that it's just a little 1 or 2 foot flower. And that is the case because it allows them to survive droughts. They are able to access water at a deeper level, but it also means that they soak up a lot of water. If you move to the next slide, oh, actually, it's the one after where I'll come back to that topic. In the meantime, oh, yeah, we're here now. So a rain garden is an example of you putting these deep roots to work. You want to fill it with native plants that are very thirsty plants that can withstand conditions of flooding, and they soak up all of that water, and all of these efforts help to prevent droughts and flooding. And so, Christine, if you could back it up to the one we skipped. And that, of course, is trees. Every tree that you can put out there, especially native trees. There's a list that Princeton has. That link is on our webpage. These are all great trees to plant for the same reason that we want native flowers. They are just evolved to the location and don't need the maintenance as much as others. Of particular note, you want to make sure you're avoiding invasive plants. And so we also have a link to what is called the do not plant list. Unfortunately, there are a number of invasive species that are sold in nurseries. And so it's helpful if you're not familiar with these to print that list off and take it with you when you go shopping, and make sure you're not bringing those to your lawn. Another thing to think about with trees is saying no to mulch volcanoes. What we mean by that is you will oftentimes see lawns that have been freshly mulched, and there is a little mountain around the base of the tree, or a volcano. The problem with that is that if it goes too high, it causes it damages the tree. The bark at that lower spot can start to rot, and so that is not actually good for the tree. And so this is helpful for you to know as a homeowner, but if you have a landscaper, to help educate other landscapers about that. Mulch around the base is perfectly fine, but you don't want to pile it up around the bottom of the tree. And then, like we were mentioning before, we always advocate to leave your leaves. So you could be piling them up in a corner of your lot to let them compost. You could use a mulch mower, like we mentioned before. And then, of course, you could just rake them into your flower beds or into a compost pile where they can act as mulch and they can compost. So those are all options. And we can skip that one. And so here is that link I promised If you want to go back, Christine, we have the link to our webpage. It's just sustainableprinceton.org/yard. You can find all of these tips and more. And like I said, links to the different resources I mentioned. And then finally, we have 2 events coming up. One is this Saturday. We're very excited to be showcasing a number of different electric landscaping equipment. Ace Hardware is going to have a display of their equipment out. Several homeowners are going to be bringing their equipment, so you can actually talk to people that are using different things and find out how effective it is, whether or not it would work for your yard. And then we are very excited to announce that we have a robot mower that is going to be visiting, and that should be fun to check out. Plus, we have several different organizations that will have tables set up, and we've got a lot of room to socially distance, so bring your mask and join us for that 12 to 3 at the Princeton Shopping Center. Finally, shortly after this, on May 5th, we have the last in our Great Ideas series. This year, it has focused on the co-benefits of the Climate Action Plan. And just in time for spring, the last one is all about how the Climate Action Plan supports our local environmental health. So that is May 5th at 7 o'clock, and that is a webinar, so like this. So please be sure to find that link and register for that program. And Christine, I think that's the end of mine.
Thank you so much. If you can leave your video on, and I'll invite Anna, Edgar, and Kim and Eve to turn their videos on and unmute themselves, and we'll go through some questions that have come into the Q&A. And Jenny, if you have a moment, if you want to put into the Q&A or chat function links to our events, that would be great. Thank you. So I see, Edgar and Kim, that you answered a little bit more on a question that came in from an audience member about how did you afford the cost to transition, and you mentioned that you did have to finance some of that. So I think that brings to light one of the concerns that we heard in talking with owners is the upfront cost. There's going to be some upfront cost that you might have to finance. And Anna, what do you know about, what is it like for folks that you're involved with in getting access to capital and getting access to financing? Are there programs or things that are available to help landscape company owners to figure out how to be able to start up their businesses or transition their businesses?
Yeah, well, we've learned from a couple of the owners that there have been a couple of like startup grants. However, there's not very many, and we will need to focus on how can we get them this aid, because if we want all of the businesses to be like Edgar's business, where they've already been taken that step, we need to provide some of the aid in terms of financial costs, right? And maybe something that can be done through the city plus the organizations. I'm sure that's something that we could do.
Right. I also have a question here about converting part of your lawn to a meadow. So Jenny, if you could explain a little bit about how you might convert part of your lawn to the meadow. And then I would ask Edgar, if you ever get that request from customers about managing their property in a different way, where you're not just cutting the grass, but maybe tending or converting part of that to other types of ground cover or any type of meadow. Is that some sort of a service that you think people would be interested in? And if you thought about offering that? So Jenny, if you want to start explaining that sort of concept of what you recommend, and then Edgar, if you want to follow on with that, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, what I've learned is that the first step, if you're starting with lawn, is that you have to get rid of the grass. There are a number of different strategies to do that. Some are, chemical strategies. You could also be tilling. You could be using a sod cutter to remove it. You can also lay down clear plastic tarps. But whatever it is, you have to pick a method you're comfortable with to clear the area. And then you literally plant seeds, spread seeds, or if you have the money, put little seedlings. The best time to do this is the fall because your watering needs are less that time of year. And then you wait and let it grow. And your plan, some people advocate that in the first year you mow it, you don't let it get too high. But there's several different strategies that way. But either way, the long-term goal is that you're only mowing that area once a year and sometimes twice a year. Those are the gist of it as a non-landscaper, what I've learned.
So Edgar, Kim, do you have any clients, or have you looked at any ways that you could still provide a service, which is not cutting grass, but maybe managing a rain garden or tending to a meadow, other types of way to sort of provide yard care that's not just cutting grass?
So at the moment we are, learning a little more about the solutions that they can be. We do not offer those services yet because we do not have all the knowledge to do them. But definitely, we like to, to learn more things every single year, and we will definitely be offering that in the near future.
Great.
But to answer your question, I don't think any of our customers have requested an alternative like that so far.
That means there's more work for us to do to create the demand and the supply.
Yeah.
Great. There's a question from Carolyn Birnbaum. Edgar and Kim, how did you learn to do landscaping, and what do you typically do for your customers?
So since 2009, like I said, I moved to Princeton. And on the weekends, I actually work for several other companies, which they allow me to do, part-time for them. So that's how, I've been learning and stuff like that. Also, I didn't know if I mentioned it, but I also work for this other company, which is called Willows Bend Irrigation. I worked for them since 2015 until 2019, being an irrigation technician for them. And then, I also learned, have some knowledge with irrigation and stuff like that. And then also some of the, customers for them were also complaining about, landscapers that because they have too many customers, they always running, even when there is wet grass, or even if it's raining and they're destroying the lawns and stuff like that. So we are, kind of try to avoiding those problems, but to answer those questions, yes, we are, we've been in the field since 2009 until we completely jump into our own thing.
Okay. Question from Blaise Santiani is there another reason mulch volcanoes are used? Do homeowners find them aesthetically pleasing? And if so, I doubt they realize the risk to the tree. Anyone want to field that question?
Yes. So, the problem is that the tree will not breathe and it will suffocate with that much mulch because mulch is really hot. So when you put it next to the tree, it just burns per se. So what we do, we call it a donut. We don't put it as a volcano. So we make a donut on our way around and do not put that much mulch on the, near the stump, I will call it. And otherwise you can just spread it around and make a donut. That's what we call it, in the industry.
Can I add a quick note to that? My first year on council, I was the liaison to the Shade Tree Commission, and this was something that came up over and over again. They just hated these mulch volcanoes, and they handed out door hangers and everything to try to get people to change. And I think to answer the question about why do people do that, I think that is a really important question that illustrates a lot of why we see the landscaping practices that we do. I think a lot of people don't know much. I mean, I certainly didn't know anything a few years ago. Now I know a tiny bit. And people just do what their neighbors do. So they see somebody has a new tree with a mulch volcano, and they're like, that's what I should do. And a landscaper comes, or somebody plants a tree, and they're like, what about the volcano? What about, whatever they would call it, but it doesn't look right because that's what they're used to seeing. And it's the same thing with how we see lawns. We're used to what one of the members of our group called a plastic kind of looking lawn, where everything is very manicured and there's not a leaf in sight. And people lose track of the fact that the leaves are a valuable commodity. And the way that we see our lawns often around here is not really a healthy way to maintain our landscape. So I think a lot of it is just, this is what people see, and they think this is how things should look.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, I think it's knowledge, right? Like knowing how to properly care for the things that you have around your house, your trees and everything. So I think it's more like the knowledge portion of it. Like Eve mentioned, is what people see. So that's what people think is right. And that they not necessarily know the consequences or the benefits of doing it the right way.
Thank you, Kim. And if I'll extend that a little bit, it seems like a small thing. Like what is the downside of tree volcanoes and making it difficult for the tree is that our tree canopy is really important, and our trees are really important to manage stormwater, which we are going to have more precipitation because of climate change, which means more flooding, which puts people who are already disadvantaged in more of a disadvantage if they can't get to their jobs or to the hospital. They provide a tree canopy, which provides a cooling effect, which reduces the urban heat island effect. So people who live in our community that don't have much greenery, it's providing some type of cooling effect. So it's all very interconnected. It seems like a small thing, like what could one tree volcano do? And how does that affect all of us? This is how it's all connected. Let's see if we have any other questions here. I think we answered this one. Recommend just mulching and leaving the leaves on the property. I think that's a definite yes. I don't know if perhaps Edgar or Kim, if you know the answer to this one. There's been quite a bit of attention being raised about a certain invasive that is sort of taking over Princeton, lesser celandine. Someone wants to figure out, is asking about that, and also just what type of native ground cover, if they wanted to convert part of their lawn, what might you recommend?
So I do not have an answer for that. I'm actually, as we speak, we are doing some research about native plants and stuff like that. So we still have to get there. So unfortunately, I do not have an answer for that one yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Christine, I'm happy to share links to a few resources for that question that I know about.
Great. There's another question here. Are there any laws about meadows in Princeton? I've heard neighbors have received citations for higher plants. I'm not aware of anything. That's something we can try to follow up with. Unless Eve, you're aware of anything that has to do, I know you can't just let your lawn grow. It has to be an
interesting question. I think you're right. If you let your lawn grow, at least in former days, somebody would knock on your door and tell you that you should do something about it. And I think even in some cases, Public Works would come and mow your lawn. That's really an interesting question. I hadn't thought about that. I don't know if a meadow that is not just a lawn would be different, or if this recollection is something that's very, antiquated. And that's a good thing to check into. I'm not aware of any regulation in town that says that your lawn must be kept at a certain height. but we should
Yeah,
look into
you
it.
can look into that. I do think that it's something that the health department may get involved with if someone complains about that. I do recall attending a Princeton Environmental Film Festival film and talk from a few years ago where someone brought this up. Someone was trying to grow a pollinator garden or a meadow, and neighbors were complaining. And the way they sort of solved it is they put up a sign that said, you know, I can't remember the name of the person who lived there. It was like the Miller's pollinator garden. And all it took was that sign to have the community understand that this was intentional, right? This wasn't just not cutting the grass. Something as simple as that really helped people understand what they were trying to do. Question from Scott Sillers to Edgar and Kim. Do you feel that you are more competitive with the more sustainable services that you offer? Do you think there's less of a need to compete on price and that you're becoming a premium service provider?
Absolutely, yes. I feel like, yes, we offer a premium service. The equipment has definitely shown that it is of a higher quality for majority of the services. So yes, I would definitely say so.
Do you feel like you're competitive with, is it giving you a competitive edge? I think is what the person is asking.
Would you say you're not a competitive edge?
I would say not competitive because I don't know if there is any other companies offering this yet, you know?
Some companies offer a partial service. Some companies offer, like, I have a one mower that I can mow your lawn with the equipment if you want to, but I think we're pretty much just, like I said, pioneering this. So are we competitive? I would say it depends on the kind of customer that's coming to us.
Someone has helped us out here. They believe the language is, thank you, Maggie Miller, keep vegetation, for example, hedges, trees, branches, shrubbery, trimmed to a distance of 1 foot laterally from the sidewalk and height of 8 feet vertical from the sidewalk. So that is the current ordinance that's on the books. Although perhaps we need to look into creating a definition of a meadow so that it doesn't fall into that category. Question for Sustainable Princeton. What sustainable services should we be requesting from our landscapers? Jenny, I think you want to field that one?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, all of the above. We are actually in the process of making some educational pamphlets to distribute to homeowners for that exact reason. And we hope to have some available at our event this Saturday, but otherwise on our website within the month, I think is a reasonable expectation. But the idea, it depends a lot on your lawn. Think about your lawn and what you want to have in your lawn. If you have room to make a meadow, request that. If you have drainage issues, definitely a rain garden makes a lot of sense. If you just want to keep your lawn, then mowing it and watering it appropriately are all things to consider. And then definitely bringing as many native plants as you can and trees into your property would be certainly very important as well.
And I think we'll take this as our last question, and then I'd like to have close out with everyone just telling our audience one key takeaway that you would like our audience to take home with them. So Eve, will Princeton residents have an opportunity to voice their questions, concern prior to the final passage of any ordinance that proposes to eliminate gas-powered equipment? Can you explain the ordinance process and the public hearing process?
Right. So first I'll say that as Christine had outlined earlier, there'll be a process of trying to bring all stakeholders to the table to get the shape of an ordinance that may be phased in over a period of time to minimize the impact on our landscapers and on homeowners that are using equipment like that. Once the shape of a potential ordinance becomes clear, the way, and I think, and Christine, referring to you about this, I think that part of our process here was to have at least one public meeting. I mean, hopefully we can do this in in person rather than virtually, where people will have a chance to weigh in. And if it's not done explicitly through this group, then that can certainly be done as part of the process, either through the Environmental Commission or through Princeton Council. So often an ordinance will come through one of our boards or commissions. So this might be something that the Environmental Commission would have a meeting about, and people would be welcome to come and weigh in there. The ordinance process typically is that an ordinance is written and introduced, and then there's a couple of weeks before it's heard at a public hearing. So absolutely, if whatever we do, we want it to be successful. We're not going to get 100% agreement on anything, but we want all voices to be heard and all concerns to be heard. And so that's why this is often a very slow moving process, not speedy, but I think it's best to do it right and make sure everybody's concerns are heard. So there will be, first of all, if you have opinions about this, please reach out and contact me. And reach out to PEC as well. But there'll be multiple meetings where people who are perhaps have gas-powered equipment and want to keep it will have an opportunity to speak, and hopefully we'll come up with a process that can accommodate everyone's needs over a period of time, as well as move us to a way of maintaining our natural landscape that is healthier for the people that do it, for the planet, and for the people that enjoy our landscape. So that's the ultimate goal.
And we had an event on January 13th where Tammy Sands explains the ordinance process a little more in detail about how any ordinance in the municipality goes through the process. So if you go to our YouTube page, you'll find the Changing the Landscape #1 event that we had on January 13th. And if you watch the part of Tammy Sam's presentation, you can learn a little bit more about the ordinance process. Okay, I will start with Edgar and Kim. One key takeaway that you would like our audience to go home with.
Yeah, all yours.
Well, that I'd say, like, first of all, like I'd say key takeaway is there's major benefits to going eco. Taking care of the environment is everyone's responsibility. So think about it that way. We have children. We want to pass on a healthy planet.
Yeah. Anna, what one key takeaway would you like our audience to go home with?
Well, one of the things that comes to mind is that we are all in this together, and residents, the city, the workers, the owners, we all can learn from each other. So I'd like us to all take away that together we'll be able to build a sustainable practice for our city, right?
Yes. Eve.
You guys have left nothing to say. I'll say this is really a paradigm shift in which we are thinking about, again, how to sustain the health of the people that do landscaping work and the health of our environment together. And it really involves people thinking about the practices that they use and moving toward something different. And that can be a little bit scary. Change can be hard, but I think it's something where if everybody can affect one or two people, and they can affect one or two people, we can have a quiet revolution, literally a quiet revolution. And I think it really is something that it's wonderful that Edgar and Kim are offering this great service, but we have to provide the demand for it. So people who are property owners have to make the decision that this is what's better for workers, for the environment, and move towards that.
Yes. Jenny.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna go with everything that you can do starts in your yard. So look around your property and see what you can do. That might be the only influence you have. So use it and bring some native plants to it.
Great. Okay, well, with that, I will conclude our event for this evening. I want to thank all of you so very much and thank our audience. A recording of this will be available on our YouTube page. So if you missed anything or you'd like to share it with your neighbors and colleagues, you can find it there and share it. And if you have any questions, you can contact Sustainable Princeton at info@sustainableprinceton.org. We put that in the chat function there. And I wish everyone a happy and healthy good evening. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Happy Earth Day.
Thank you, you too.